Okay, we will be now switching on to how to federalism, the other part of it. So we saw as to how in the Lok Sabha, or rather, sorry, I'm so sorry. Federalism, we have 3 tiers of the government in India. We have the union level, we have the state level, and of course we have the union level, then we have the state level, and we have the local level as well. So there are 3 tiers of the government, and they function in perfect synchrony with each other. Yes, there could be differences, and these differences need to be resolved. So in case there are certain changes that need to be brought about. See, we have evolved in governance, right? So a part of the way things used to function 50 years back are not the same in which we are functioning today. Our society has changed in terms of lifestyle, in terms of preferences, in terms of thought process, in terms of career options that we have, in terms of the money that is evolving in terms of GDP or GNP, so whatever. So there is a huge change, and if there are changes in profession, if there are changes in lifestyle, if there are changes in the societal structure, obviously there will be changes in the political structure of the country as well, which means that whatever has been authorized in the Constitution of India to different political constituents might change. So there is always a scope of change. It's not going to be till eternity, okay, but there is a process for this change. So in case any systematic changes need to be made in the governance, okay, any changes in the system, any changes in the 3-tier system that we have available today, okay, there are certain procedures that need to be followed. So how can power sharing changes be brought in India? How can we actually bring about changes that are correlated to power sharing in India? Okay, so the process is, whenever we need to bring power sharing changes for whatever reasons, if there is a constant conflict between the state and the center, or between the center and the local self government, okay, and it is happening all around India, okay, it's not that just only one state is having problems with the center, or one state is having problems with the local government. If it is a frequent problem that is kind of interrupting the process of welfare due to political constraints, okay, then what needs to be followed? If there needs to be a change that needs to be brought, what is the procedure that needs to be followed? Whether it is changes in the 3-tier system, whether it is changes in the constituent, or whether it is changes in any methodology, okay, whether it is any changes in the power that is entrusted to all the levels of the government. So any of these rapid changes that needs to be brought about, okay, first it needs to be passed in both the houses of the parliament. So first this change needs to be passed in both the houses of the parliament. So both the houses of the parliament need to pass a bill. Okay, a bill is what? A bill is basically something which is passed on majority. So whenever there is a lock in the decision, it is considered as a majority. Okay, so we all know how majority works. So in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, the bill will be presented, or basically this will be passed, and if it is actually agreed by the majorities, 2/3 majority basically, then it is supposedly passed. Okay, so the first process is, it needs to be passed in both the houses of the parliament, which is the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, with at least 2/3 majority. Okay, so 2/3 majority has to be gained by that, okay, by that process. Okay, whatever change that the state or the center or the union government or the local government is trying to incorporate, that has to be passed by a 2/3 majority. Then it has to be approved by the government at least half of the total states. Okay, now let's say India has 29 states. Okay, now all these 29 states have to, basically half of them, that is approximately 15 of them, have to approve this change. Okay, so they have to vote for the change. Okay, they might decide to back out, they might decide to vote. Okay, so since it is happening at, see, these things are happening at a representative level. The public or the citizens of the country have done their job in electing the government. Okay, now it is the government which has to function efficiently to ensure welfare of people, and for this purpose, okay, if it has to ensure welfare of people, then it has to ensure that it is first governing itself clearly. Okay, so first it needs to be passed in both the houses of the parliament with at least 2/3 majority. and then it has to be approved by the government of at least half of the total states. So whatever number of states we are having, it has to be approved by at least half of the total states. Okay. If at all there is a conflict in decision of state and center, so there is a tussle between the state and the center regarding a certain project, regarding a certain process, or regarding anything, okay, decision taken by the central government will be followed. So the central government will be the decisive factor. The decision that will be taken by the central government, that will be followed. So as we learned, in case of India, it is the central government which is more powerful in case there is a conflict. Okay, in case there is a conflict, in the central government will be the more powerful one, and this decision taken by the central government will be incorporated. Whereas if we go in Belgium, the state government is more powerful. So in that case, the state government will be the decisive factor in Belgium. Okay, so that's the difference between India and Belgium, and at times it is asked in objectives, to be aware about it. So decision taken by the central government will be followed. Okay, okay. Now look at this. Okay, when India was formed, how these states were formed. So first of all, we have to get into the background of it. See, we are talking today about federalism, which means union government, state government, local government. Now union government we can understand, which controls the entire country. Okay, how did the state government involve? So obviously the state government is involving because there are different states. Now how have these states involved? Okay, how have these states evolved? So the basic concept of formation of states after India gained independence, and after after India gained independence, it was not that India was formed as it is you see today. There was a lot of conflict. There were a lot of princely states, and these princely states were not ready to hand over themselves to the government of India. They said that it is their region that needs to be managed by them, not by any government. Okay, so it was a huge challenge, and by and large, gradually India actually became a country. Otherwise, there were a lot of princely states, there were a lot of zamindari system, and all that things were prevalent. Okay, so all these things were prevalent. So finally, the government managed to get everything under one head. Okay, now this question of state arose. Why? First of all, see, in order to effectively manage a region, you need to diversify the government. Now, the first thing that came into mind of the planners at that time was, how do we divide this entire country into different states? So the first thing that came into their mind was a linguistic approach. Linguistic approach means, see, people of Maharashtra, they generally speak Marathi. People of Bengal, they generally speak Bengali. And people of Punjab, they generally speak Punjabi. So that was the first approach. First approach was linguistic behavior. Okay, and that's the reason, see, we studied Belgium. When we studied Belgium, France, French community and Dutch community, there was a group of people who are speaking Dutch, and there's a group of people who speak French. In similar way, when we studied Sri Lanka, most of the countries, you will see that there is a strong linguistic influence. Okay, which means obviously we also have the caste system, which is very powerful in India, but on top of it is the linguistic system. When you actually know the language of a particular region, you kind of gel around with people better. So if a state like Maharashtra has to be formed, it has to be formed out of people who speak the Maharashtrian language. If a state of West Bengal has to be formed, it has to be formed out of a set of people who speak the common Bengali language, and this is how the entire segregation happened. So states were formed on linguistic approach, which means the common language of people in a particular region. In a particular region, what is the common language of people? Anything, the first thing, see, when I talk about any state, the first thing that will come into your mind about the people there would be language. If I am talking about Kerala, the first thing that would come into your mind will be people speak Malayalam there. Okay, so if I am talking about Tamil Nadu, the first thing that would come into your mind would be people speak Tamilian there, or people in Punjab, they would speak Punjabi there. People in West Bengal, they will speak Bengali there. So the first thing that comes into your mind, or any average Indian's mind, is the language that is commonly spoken in that state, and that's how the linguistic basis of division of states. So the division of states happened on linguistic basis, okay, on the language that they speak. So there was a fear at the start. See, the planners who had actually framed the constitution, who had actually who had actually devised the entire mechanism of Indian government, okay, they were at a fear that we are trying to divide India for effective governance. It is not that we are trying to divide India, we are trying to create compartments in which governance would be more efficient, okay, and we are following a linguistic approach. Will this linguistic approach be a cause of dispute? It can be, right? So, but this didn't happen. Fortunately, this didn't happen. Fear at the start. At the start, the planners feared that there might be a disintegration. Instead of integration of these states into India, it might work the other way around. It might get disintegrated. Okay. So, at the start, the planners had this fear in mind that our efforts might go in vain, because linguistic approach might also create a disintegration and might be at the biggest hurdle in achieving a common government, okay, but this didn't happen. So there was a fear at the start, so this led to disintegration of the country. However, formation of linguistic states further united the country. They further united the country instead of disintegrating it. Start further uniting the country. So basic reason of, the planners had this in mind, that the linguistic approach might be very unhealthy for India, but that didn't stop the process of this disintegration, okay. Now what is the basic reason for decentralization? What I mean by decentralization is, you have a central government, and then you have a state government, and then you have a local government. So what are you doing? You are decentralizing power. The central power is being diluted across states and local governments, okay. So what is the purpose of this decentralization? Why is the power getting diluted, or why do we need to rely on a local government? Why can't the center manage the entire thing? Okay, the reason why it cannot manage is because India is a diversified state, different cultures, people, different geographical locations, different lifestyles, okay, different feeding habits. I mean, diversity is, you name it, under anything you will find a huge diversification, different communities of people, different language, okay. So in order to understand, see, a person sitting in Mumbai, which is a metropolitan city, might not understand the problems a farmer is facing in some remote area in Rajasthan, right? The climate is different, the circumstances are different, the entire lifestyle is different, okay. So different regions have their own set of problems. Some regions are impacted by geographical extremities of climate, like too hot temperature, or maybe too cold temperatures, okay, and some are impacted by different diversities of people. So whatever may be the reason, okay. So I, being a localite of a particular area, will be more aware of the problems than a person who stays away from my place, okay. A person residing in Mumbai, which is a metropolitan city, will obviously not understand the problems a farmer is facing in some remote area of any other state. So the local problems are more, or rather local people are more aware of the local problems, and they might be also aware of the local remedies that are there, okay. They are more aware of the resources that are available in a, see, even in barren lands there might be some resource available which can be effectively used, okay. For example, not every land is fertile, but it might be useful for extracting certain minerals. Are we aware of it? Okay, so local people are the people who are most aware of a particular region, and hence this reliability. Hence we need to rely on the local government, okay. The reason why this dilution happened is because local people know better about the local problems, and they also know the solutions as well. Now if let's say there is a Prime Minister of India, and there is some problem of let's say water supply in a remote area in Kerala. Now can the Prime Minister be expected to resolve this problem? Water supply is not being efficient in a particular remote region, in a village in Kerala. So obviously it will not be possible. The effective management will not be possible. There are n number of reasons and n number of problems, infinite, okay. So in order to effectively manage, we would need the help of the local people, and in order to need the help of the local people, we need local governance, and hence we need the local government, okay. So this decentralization of power has the main objective of welfare of people, and the purpose of the dilution of governance is because things can be managed better at a very lower level of even village or taluka or district. Okay, so this is the main purpose why decentralization of power has happened. Okay, so you have to basically remember certain words or keywords, or you have to apply these keywords in your answers as well. Let's say linguistic basis or decentralization of power. Okay, so these are certain things that we need to be careful about, right? You can take a snapshot of the same.